No, that's
We're
not
ending
Friday.
at 9.
Good morning. Welcome to the November 7th, 2024 Parking, Traffic, and Safety Committee meeting. Would you please call the roll?
Mark Siracusa.
Here.
Mary Lou Calwin.
Here.
Erica Wagonic.
Here.
Dave Allen.
Here.
Stephanie Cassell.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney.
Here.
Fire Chief Bill McQuillan. Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
Committee Chair Andrew Bagley.
Here. And could we have the financial report, please? Sure. Do we have any, can we get a motion to approve the financial report as presented?
Motion approved.
Second.
Any questions about it? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we have public comment. You can just come up, state your name and address, and speak into one of the mics, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ollery Lane. I live at 306 Hanover Street in beautiful downtown Portsmouth. Did you have a comment? Sorry.
Have a feed.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. I'm here representing the 4 tenants that are in my building right now. Hanover Street was one of the streets in the Islington Creek neighborhood parking pilot program a couple of years ago, which I felt and a lot of people on my street felt was very, very successful because there was no question about who was supposed to be parking where on Hanover Street, Parker Street, Pearl Street, Rock Street, right through that whole area. When that expired, I understand that our parking situation is a treasure hunt. You get a parking place if you find a parking place. However, what happens, even though there are signs there now on Hanover Street, Rock, Pearl, etc., that say resident parking, I have no idea what that means. Every single day, in fact, right now, there are people that park on that street, on Hanover Street and other streets, who are not residents. Again, I don't even know what that means on the sign. Resident of what? New Hampshire? Portsmouth? Now, there have been more tickets I've seen that have been issued, but just yesterday I talked to somebody driving a red Saab, Maine license plates. He pulls in, I'm walking by with my dog, and I said, "Oh, do you live on this street? It's resident parking." He goes, "No, but my friend does." And he told me I could just park here. And it is so frustrating. I walked here, it's a great walk, but if I had driven here, spent a half an hour here or whatever, and gone home, I wouldn't have a parking place because it's filled with people who work downtown. And again, I've questioned people, asked them. I've been insulted, I've been yelled at just for saying it says resident parking, you don't live here. So like I said, I'm representing 4 people in my building, but also my neighbors around. We would really like an opportunity to have some kind of a parking sticker program, permanent, for residents. So if you're a tenant, if you have to pay, okay, fine, whatever that might be. Hopefully it's a reasonable amount of money. And then we know when we come into park, we've got a place to park. I don't have off-street parking. Not everybody does on Hanover Street. Last night I parked actually way down McDonough because there was no place for me because people come in after 6 o'clock, which is what the sign says, okay? Great. They're going to our restaurants. They're shopping. That's wonderful. But again, the people that have lived here. I've been a resident there since I've been there 4 years, kind of like an old-timer there now. Moved in during the pandemic when none of this was an issue. But again, I know the people on these streets would definitely support some kind of a parking sticker program. There are some areas, there's the park right at the end of Hanover Street there. It's right where, I'm blanking on it, but anyways, there's a nice little park there, right by Foundry Street Garage. There are about, I don't know, half dozen, maybe 8 parking spaces there. It's not marked at all. I know people come and go out of that. But again, it's the Islington Creek neighborhood. We're just asking for some support. I understand there has been some discussion of reinstituting some kind of a sticker program. So I'm anxious to hear what this committee might be thinking about for that, ideas, questions you might have for me. I'm here as a, again, concerned citizen, and would, again, support and like to know what your feedback is for me.
Okay, thank you. We don't do feedback at public comment. It's just a chance for you to come and express your concerns to the committee. I will say that this is something that we looked at with I can't remember the name of the group now. We did do a parking needs assessment study, and it will probably, something will go before the council in the next 6 to 8 months, but I don't anticipate anything sooner than that.
That's very unfortunate. I'm glad you're looking at something, but is that report something that will be
Well,
public?
We'll have more information at a later date. This isn't really the right forum
Mr.
to.
Chair, it is posted online.
Oh.
That you can see the report. Right, Ben? It's online. And there's a clear recommendation to develop a neighborhood parking program. So that is, council is considering that.
So there's a recommendation, but there's no parameters or anything yet that's posted.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
So can I just, if you go on the website, what category do you look for if you want that information?
means
If you
nothing.
go on and search for parking utilization study,
Yeah, there's a whole
parking
webpage.
study, parking utilization study.
Start the basic website in the search field. there?
Cities, the city's website has a search bar up top. Or you can park, type in parking study, parking, it'll take you to
Parking utilization study will be there. There's a whole webpage.
Okay. And the minutes for this meeting, are those available publicly as well?
They'll be posted at the next meeting, and there's also a link if you go to the PTS page on the website, and you can send us a contact info, and we can get you more information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online?
Yes, but they're not raising their hand to speak.
You're okay. With that, unless we see a hand pop up online in the next few seconds, I will close the public comment. And next, we have new business, Hanover Street request to renew annual valet license agreement for the 100 Club by business owner. I am a member there, so I'm going to hand this over to Erica to handle and recuse myself.
We have an application to approve their annual renewal of the valet license. Do I have a motion to approve?
So motioned, so moved.
Second.
Any comment?
Nothing different, right? It's the same contract, and there's not been a problem?
Correct.
Okay.
It usually comes up in May. It just fell through the cracks this year, so but
Yeah.
it'll be renewed, and then it'll be picked up again next May.
Yeah,
for renewal.
so,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I abstained. Thank you, Erica. Item B, Marston Street, request to install stop sign and no parking here to corner sign near intersection with South Street and to trim vegetation to improve sightlines at intersection by resident. Sample motion is move to approve installation of stop sign and no parking here to corner sign on Marston Street at intersection with South Street and to trim the vegetation within city right of way to improve the sightlines.
So moved.
second.
Any discussion or maybe a present? Do you have a presentation, Eric, for this one or?
This picture here that's in the packet, and I can share that online as well.
I would be remiss, Mr. Chairman, not to mention some of the history on this location.
You want to start with the history then? Yeah.
So, the resident on the corner of, what's that street? On the corner of Marston and South
Yeah.
has expressed concerns in the past about a stop sign being posted there. And her attorney has reached out to us and expressed concern about it.
What's the concern? Does she want it or not want
She
it?
does not want it.
Because we have to cut down the bushes?
No, it's the visual impact of the sign. I don't think she's aware that the bushes would need to be trimmed
Oh,
as well.
oh,
City bushes.
No, she landscaped it, but it's on city right-of-way,
Oh,
or in city right-of-way.
okay. So is this a legal matter at that point?
Well, I'm just bringing up some of the history. This came before us, Mike, do you recall, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years?
As I looked at it, it rings a bell, yeah, and I'd
Yeah.
say between 5 and 10, yeah.
Yeah, because a couple of your officers went and knocked on the door, and
Yeah.
that ensued,
Yes.
a bunch of concern.
Yes.
our staff went out there recently to install the sign that had been requested, because it's really not a, it's something that's within our purview to install stop signs. They were met by the resident, and the resident expressed concern, and so the staff packed up and left, and then their attorney reached out, or the person's attorney reached out, and so I would recommend that we table this until we have the opportunity to speak to the resident's attorney.
Right.
And, I'd be interested in folks' opinion of the stop sign, just for the record. It's just, there are stop signs on all the other cross streets coming up to South Street, so it's not an unreasonable request, and it helps restrict parking right up to the corner. So.
Well, I feel that, in my mind, this would have been approved. Can't speak for everybody else. But now that a lawyer's involved, it's smart just to table it, so.
Erica?
I kind of feel like we should approve it and then that negotiation should happen because there's no negotiation to happen if we don't have a plan. So I guess, I could be wrong about that, but I feel like then you can say, look, Parking and Traffic Safety has approved this. Can we have that conversation? We're not attorneys. It's not our job to deal with attorney issues. Our job is to deal with Parking and Traffic Safety.
My motion would have been to go to legal review, to legal counsel, city legal counsel. Motion to go to city legal counsel. Motion to table is, I think, what we should do right now. But if Peter doesn't do that, then I'm going to go motion to.
Could we?
For legal review.
Can we motion to, let's have the discussion to get, to me.
A lawyer's involved.
Speaking, I'm not worried about the lawyer, I'm worried about an accident. And there needs to be a stop sign there. To me, that's a very dangerous intersection in the sense that if you were to roll through Marston onto South, the people on South don't have a very long view.
Do you have any accident reports?
No.
None. So
So-
no accident.
I didn't research any, but I cannot think of any off the top of my head.
What's the history of where the request to put it in has come from? We hear the history of.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. We've gotten several requests through See-Click Fix and phone calls, emails. A big issue has been parking on both sides of Marston Avenue. It's a narrow street, and parking is allowed on both sides. And when that happens, then it's just one skinny lane down the middle, and vehicles pulling in from South Street and coming out of Marston at the same time have nowhere to go. They have no room to maneuver and get around each other, so you're creating a conflict safety problem out at the intersection. And so don't know where these cars are coming from, why they're parking there. We thought it might have been to the construction up on Wyberg Willard, but it's not. It seems to be more residents along the South Street area are parking there. So the request was mainly to put that no parking here to corner sign, give 30 feet as per state law to a stop bar. But it was also that there is no stop sign there, so if we're going to be putting in the one sign, might as well put in both at the same time. They're both needed.
Do you
Just let me finish. And the other issue was the sight lines. There's a big bush here on the right-hand side. This one looks to be entirely within the city right-of-way, and that could be cut back somewhat to improve the sight lines looking left coming out of Marston. But there's also these two bushes, which are on this piece of property, that overhang the sidewalk somewhat and do restrict the sight lines coming out, looking to the right, coming out of Marston. But even if they were trimmed back, they would still be an obstruction to the sight lines. You'd have to cut them down substantially to improve the sight lines there. So the main issue that we've received is the parking on Marston Avenue and trying to pull that back, as well as the sight lines. It's a secondary issue.
So this is, go ahead, Mary Lou.
Well, I was going to say, why is it a legal issue if it's city property that we're putting a stop sign on? I'm not sure how this convolutes here.
No, it's,
What was the bushes?
yeah.
Well,
Residents have the right to advocate for themselves, and if they lawyer up, it becomes a legal issue.
we're working
Erica.
within a state law, aren't we?
Again,
Yeah.
residents have a right to
Yeah,
advocate
okay.
for
I'm just
themselves.
saying I don't
and
get
if
it.
they choose to
Erica?
go legal, they go legal.
Go ahead.
Residents have every right to participate in this process however they see fit. And if the neighbor has that opinion and wants to proceed in that way, I think that's fine. but that's independent of what our job is. And so I don't see any reason that we need to table or wait for legal counsel to make a decision about what we think is best for parking and traffic safety in accordance with state law and national guidelines. So I feel very comfortable making a recommendation to support this motion, and then the city can
Let it play out.
let it play out however it needs to play out.
My point was just to make you aware so that it didn't come back and then all of a sudden you say, well, you guys knew about this, why didn't you say something?
Yeah.
So it's really just to be aware of the overall context of the request. But I understand what you're saying and I don't disagree.
Dave?
It's kind of odd to have a stop bar without a stop sign, isn't it? I mean, is that...
A little bit, yeah.
So, a question for you, Peter. If we were to approve this, there's always a delay between when we approve something and it happens.
Yeah.
Would that just natural delay of give you plenty of time to talk to legal, and if legal had concerns, we could always bring it back to us with legal concerns?
Yeah, and then if necessary, we could always postpone the vote, council vote, to allow for that to be resolved.
Okay. So I would not want us to not install a stop sign where it seems clear that there should be a stop sign, because a property owner is opposed to the idea. I think that's not a good precedent. I think safety needs to be, the first consideration, not a secondary consideration. But I think we should also, if this were to pass, understand that the city might take a little bit more time putting things in, just so they can get the legal ducks in a row. And if it has to come back to the committee, it could always come back to the committee for secondary consideration.
I agree with Erica's evaluation, however.
Yeah. So the owner is more for aesthetic value, she's not, okay, all right. And my other question is, so if you do a stop sign, you have to do both at once. Is it like a package? You can't just do stop sign and not do,
No parking.
what's the terminology?
Here to corner, here to...
No parking here to corner? The stop bar? I
Yes,
don't know.
yes, parking here to corner.
They're both.
You do it
as
both at
needed.
once.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both as needed.
Do you legally have to do that, or is there a standard
you don't
code?
have to. No,
Okay.
it's not legally.
That was my question.
It's state code that if there's a stop sign, you're not allowed to park within 30 feet.
All right.
But many people are unaware of that, so oftentimes we have to put the stop sign, the extra sign up to
Yeah.
I think,
educate.
I think we should recommend that. Stop sign in 30 feet, and then let everything else just play out, including the trimming of the bushes, which is,
Yes, I think if we leave the motion as it was really written, there's enough leeway. It doesn't say 30 feet. It says trim the vegetation, which doesn't say,
within city right of way.
it's open to interpretation exactly where the signs go
should we
and
take
how
the
much
trimming of
trimming.
the vegetation out, or just keep it in?
I think if we leave it in, we have that opportunity to do it, and if we choose not to, we choose not to, but,
The motion, sorry.
yep.
The motion says trim vegetation within city right of way, so
Yeah,
it wouldn't, we're not,
right.
And that's,
that gives the room to do, the bush on the corner is entirely in city right of way, so even if we just do one,
Right.
which they probably think of as their bush, but.
Correct.
and this is something we deal with all the time in the state. There's a lot of bushes that overhang where they
Overhang.
probably shouldn't, and I think our DPW uses their best judgment to minimize any impact to the residents.
Minimize we appreciate residents taking on that space as their own, in the sense that they maintain it, they beautify it, it benefits the city. So we appreciate that. And we're respectful of the monies that they spend doing that type of thing. So we do not lightly go in and trim things back.
Erica?
Aye.
You want to make a motion? You going to make that motion?
So,
I think we already made the motion.
yeah, so I guess all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to recuse.
Okay. South Street, request for crosswalk at Rand Court by resident. Sample motion to move to refer to staff for evaluation. Report back at future meeting.
So moved.
Second.
So this is like half a block down the road.
Right,
Yes, yeah.
that's right.
It's kind of an odd location in my book.
Really not.
Crosswalk,
It's
yeah.
really not an appropriate location for a crosswalk, in my mind. but, we'll look at it, and,
Yeah.
The kids scoot through there, that's why they're asking for the,
yeah, it
Scoot
goes
everywhere.
to a private
Everywhere.
path.
Right.
That is not a city path,
Yeah.
it's,
more of the same.
yeah.
Really, it's very similar.
But it's a crosswalk without,
Well, why don't we
Without being a-
get the staff evaluation report back so we have
Yeah,
some
yeah,
data
yeah, yeah.
to discuss.
Good idea.
Is it possible when you're doing this staff evaluation to also just take a look at, I can see the desire to cross South Street and that there's kind of a pretty big gap there between places established for them to cross. So I think it would be good, like there's a demand there that maybe we need to meet and maybe that's not the right spot, but I'm not looking for an entire like corridor pedestrian study here, but just to kind of consider if there's somewhere else that might work.
Yeah. I think that there aren't any sidewalks along that side of South Street for
Right.
up until you get to Union Street. So the only crossing really is at the high school where you have the crosswalk and the crossing guard.
And then down
And
to the-
broad down.
But it's broad, yeah. But I'm thinking just between Union and the high school, there's no sidewalks on that side of South Street.
Right.
Now, we extended the sidewalks, 2 years ago in that vicinity?
From, is it Pleasant, the road, that side street down the hill, up the hill to Union Street, we did that short segment of sidewalk.
yeah, from Pinehurst,
Pinehurst.
Broad up.
Is this
Yeah.
new because of that, or is this totally independent?
totally independent.
Independent, yeah.
But, it's, that would be one solution, would be to extend the sidewalk from where it ends, going up to Edgewood, and just continue it down to Rand. And then that way people could cross at Union at a safe crosswalk
Yeah.
to get over. But that would be, a capital project, and it's a tight,
It's very tight.
right, it's very tight right away.
Yeah.
through there.
Could we, when you come back with the recommendations, maybe if you could say if you think that's feasible or not feasible, would be helpful as well.
Sure.
What did you say?
Just to see if extending the sidewalk is feasible or not feasible.
Right, but I would guess that would go up to Summit, the sidewalk, so that kids who are crossing wouldn't have to cross. They could go down that side of the sidewalk all the
Well,
way down.
I think
No?
the director's point is the kids disappear in the woods there onto a trail. So they don't continue along south on that side. So that's where we get into the
Do what they want to do, too.
Yeah.
gray areas.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get the report back. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, old business, Bartlett Street, Kate Street, Hodgson Way, pedestrian vehicle concerns by residents. Report back from staff.
Okay, so since our last meeting, we've gone out there and done some measurements, and we've conducted speed studies and sightline measurements and taken a look at the issues. It's really stemming all the way from the Railroad Bridge all the way down to Kate Street, Hodgson Street intersection. We've measured speeds here on this curve. We saw that speeds are averaging 25 miles an hour, which is the posted speed limit. The 85th percentile is at 29 miles per hour, so slightly above the speed limit. We looked at sightlines coming out of this driveway, which was a concern, and there's other pictures in the packet on that. But looking to the left, coming out of this driveway, your sightlines are limited to in front of these buildings here. What's limiting it is the curve in the road plus the bushes along the front of this building here. And to meet the sight lines for the posted speed limit, you would need to trim back these bushes. However, to meet the speed sight lines for the actual 85th percentile speeds, you would have to slow the speeds on the roadway here, because there's no way to see the 200 feet around this curve that you need for the speeds of 29 miles an hour. So it's kind of tough to do anything to slow these speeds down unless we come up with some other traffic calming measures. The ability of this driveway, they do have the option of two other driveways coming out of this development. They have this driveway here where the sight lines are better. It's further away from this curve. And there's also this driveway here, which is exit only with unlimited sight lines here. So they do have options of coming out of this driveway. We'd rather not tell them that they have to cut their bushes down in front of this building here, because that's the only landscaping they have here. And even if you were to remove those bushes entirely, you still wouldn't have sufficient sight lines for the speeds that are coming around this curve. at the 85th percentile speeds. This is another picture of it here. This is when you're pulling out of the driveway looking to the left. This is what you see. And this picture was recently taken without the leaves, and some of the growth had cut back, but even then you still can't see. I'm actually standing there, if you can see my yellow jacket here. It's very tough to see. So you're not seeing vehicles until they come out to about this point, which is sufficient for speeds of less than 25, and they're going over 25 or over. And this is a front picture here, looking at these are the hedges and the tree that would have to be trimmed down in order for the drivers to see over them, to see vehicles coming out of this driveway. So it's not an easy solution here to improve the sightlines for the speeds that are present on the roadway. You know, it suggests, they do have the option of using 2 other driveways to come out. So other issues that we looked at here was there was a request for a crosswalk at this intersection of Kate and Hodgson, and we put out video cameras and recorded pedestrian crossings here for a period of 3 days. So we saw over the course of 33 hours, we had 43 pedestrians crossings. So that's not much more than 1 pedestrian per hour, which is really not the threshold where you'd want to put a crosswalk in. You'd like to see at least 5 pedestrians an hour for 8 hours of the day, or 20 pedestrians in 1 hour to really make it worthwhile to put the expense into putting tip-down ramps and crosswalks that would be observed and used. We've looked at the crosswalks over at Kate and Bartlett. They are faded. They've worn out, so our crews will be out there to restripe those in the coming weeks, weather permitting. We've also put a new speed limit 25 sign right here on this utility pole on this curve. So vehicles coming off of Islington and heading down this way now can see the speed limit sign as they come around this way. And we are also looking to put another RRFB, flashing beacon, here on this Papa Wheelie side of the railroad bridge. We think we have enough room here. We're going to tie it into these other RFBs so that when a pedestrian pushes the button at this intersection, it'll also activate this leading flasher coming around the curve. So drivers coming from Islington will see flashers on both sides of the roadway. I think that covers all of the issues. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Erica?
I like the idea of adding an extra indicator for the RFB. I think that's a great idea. This development's pretty new, so I feel like it would have gone through site plan review. Like what are the restrictions in the approval? Like, is there no restriction about no plantings that inhibit, like, there's other things that could be planted instead of the bushes? The tree should be fine.
Yeah, we looked into that. We pulled up the site plan approval to see what was planted, what was required here, and they did plant what they said they would plant and what was approved. It's just that, it requires constant trimming back and to maintain those sight lines, something that usually isn't done that often.
And it's permitted as a dual, like, enter-exit.
Yes, the driveway was permitted as entry, 2-way driveway.
Yeah.
Mary Lou?
I was just going to ask about the driveway. That was approved also.
Yes.
So what do we do at this point? They have approval for these entrances and exits, although it's not at a safe.
Yes, and it does meet, it looked good when it was approved because the posted speed limit was 25. Vehicles are going slightly over 25.
Right.
If they were held to 25 miles an hour and those bushes were trimmed back, there would be no problem. But they are going slightly above 25, and the bushes are slightly overgrown, so you do have a small sight line restriction.
Are the concerns coming from the residents of the West End Yards?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they came to our meeting last month and expressed these concerns.
I think this is Kate Street, which is adjacent to West End Yards.
Oh, yeah, Kate Street people, right.
Erica?
Could we, I recognize they have permission to have these bushes, and we don't have a ton of say here, but I feel like it might be worth at least reaching out to the owners association and just let them know that this has been brought to our attention. We can't do much about it, but they might want to consider changing their landscaping. I mean, we can ask, right? Like, they might not, but it can't hurt to ask if we do it nicely.
Do we have a protocol for doing that sort of thing in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, this is a condo association issue. They're the ones that brought this forward as a concern, I think we could provide, saying one solution is to this, rework your landscaping, it'd be an administrative approval through planning. The site plan would just be administratively approved, it wouldn't be a big deal. They could choose to make it a one-way entrance, and not have that as, and that's a simple solution. There are simple solutions for the folks. I think part of the concern is that they don't like the volume of traffic on the roadway and the fact that trucks go down that area. That's a big, and you spend $1 million on a condo,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you realize you're living in a pretty busy area. That's tough.
The road was built before the condos were.
Right. And the road was built intentionally to carry a large volume of traffic. And trucks.
That is a challenge. So I would recommend that we do that. We suggest, or we present Eric's information and let them know that as time goes on, if they don't maintain those hedges, the problem's likely to get more challenging. But those driveways are private property, I'm presuming.
Yeah.
So they could sign it left turn only or right turn only if they wish to, but that's really a decision they could make internally, or does the city need to get involved with something like that?
It would be a modification of the site plan, but it would be
Yeah.
something that they could probably administratively do.
And I think if they needed support from PTS to modify their site plans to make it safer, we would be happy to lend that support.
If I could make a suggestion, that staff will report back to the interested party that there are suggested modifications to their site plan that would alleviate some of these issues, and that PTS is supportive of that. And at this point, there's no other action coming from the city staff. Just be clear with them on that, and then that'll, I'm sure what'll happen is they'll not be happy with that, they'll reach back out, and then, we'll have the public meeting of some sort, have the opportunity to further discuss.
Okay. And I am glad, to Erica's point about the RFB, if we can get that in, I think.
Yep, we're working on that.
That's a
We
common
actually-
request.
I don't know, we ordered that, or we?
Yeah, I just had correspondence from our vendor this morning saying
Yep.
that they
Yep, so
gave us
we're-
the price.
I would emphasize in the communication back to the requester that the city has done everything they can do. We've evaluated it. There's nothing on our property that we can make any changes to, so any changes would have to be on the site plan, but we've tried, I think city staff has tried to do what they can. They've done the measurements, but there's nothing we can do. Not that we don't want to, or that we haven't tried. We have tried. They're just.
And we are
So
doing
if
two things with the speed. There's a new speed limit sign, and there's the RFB. So if they hadn't brought that to our attention, probably either of those things would not have happened in the immediate future, anyway.
Do we have to motion that or no?
How is that structured?
Sounded like a motion earlier.
Oh yeah, we don't have a motion.
To reply back to the resident that city staff has reviewed, will be making certain changes, but changes related to site distances would need to be addressed with their own site plan. Or whatever it is you said, something in those lines.
Okay.
That's my
Well,
motion.
we'll craft something.
With some, that's the spirit of my motion.
Yes.
And if
Sense of intent.
if the site plan needs recommendation from PTS, we'd be happy to give it
Okay.
for approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Informational item, police monthly accident report.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the month of September, we had 38 reportable crashes and 77 total crashes, and no instances of crashes involving either pedestrians or bicyclists.
Any questions for the chief?
Those still around the Rotary?
I'm sorry?
Are those still around the Rotary? That's what you talked about one time. You said that so many accidents are occurring at the Rotary.
Yeah, there are a number at the Rotary,
Yeah.
the vast majority of which is not included in my report because that's the state police jurisdiction.
Yes.
Occasionally, we'll pick one up if they're not available.
Yes.
But primarily, that's there. So these wouldn't include
Okay.
Rotary traffic circle
Okay.
crashes.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, chief. And city construction report.
Yes, so Maplewood Ave Bridge should be reopened by the end of the year. They're doing some major rehab work out there, and it's going along well.
There's a fun informational video that Dave DeFosis stars in.
I saw that.
Yeah, that kind of goes over the bridge project.
Yeah.
It's neat, so if you're interested.
It's on your website.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Earlier, you had said that you thought that bridge might be open end of November, early December, but the words you just used were end of the year, which is a couple weeks later. Are you thinking it is going to be end of December now?
Yes. Dave told me yesterday. He said mid to late December, so I'm saying end of year.
Okay.
But, what the work they're doing is weather dependent, so we get nice weather like we've had this week, get it done quicker.
So starting Tuesday and going for 10 days is the arch reworking. So once that's done, they then can pull the cofferdams up, which will then allow them to consolidate their work to a single lane, and they'll get things buttoned up for the winter. So it's that the arch work is what's kind of the critical path at the moment.
They need 10 good days.
And no, it's tented and heated, so it won't be. You don't need. It's weather independent.
Great.
What's that arch made out of? Cement?
I don't know exact material. It's like a gunite type of.
Okay.
But I think it's got an elastomer plastic in it.
So
They
it'll,
build it up
Yeah.
a half inch at a time.
so it'll open back up to traffic for the winter, but the project will resume in the spring. There'll be more work then, where it'll go back down to one lane alternating, but it'll always be open to at least one lane after.
And there may be a short period of closure, like a 2-week period, to put a water line in.
And Bartlett Street should be reopened by the end of next week or so, within 2 weeks. So no more detours on Bartlett Street. That work is supposed to be substantially complete by the end of next week. There'll still be, punch list items and final paving next year, but as far as detours go, those should not be in effect anymore. Islington Street construction will continue, the one lane alternating, and that will go on until it's done and weather permitting, so. Shouldn't be any major detours there, just one lane alternating. Other projects, Union Street, we'll have those projects continuing as far as weather goes.
So, excuse me, Eric, as part of that Union Street, are they going to actually be paving the Middle Street? Right now, there's kind of a shim out on Middle. Is that section of Middle getting repaved, or is that?
Middle is, we're anticipating Middle Street paving, Mill and Phil paving in the next year or so.
As a separate project
Yeah.
outside of this? Okay. Yeah.
There'll be some repaving at the intersection of Miller, Middle, and Summer when the new traffic signal goes in next year, but
Yeah,
that's
that's
just.
going out to bid soon.
Yeah, this
That'll
winter.
be a spring construction.
Yep. But that'll just be right at the intersection.
Mary Lou?
Are we waiting on making a decision for making Union Street, that block of Union Street, one-way also?
I wanted to wait for the construction to finish up and see how things are working out there before we bring that forward.
Yeah.
So that's
I
still
know,
on
I have
hold.
a friend who lives there, and she was wondering what the progress was.
Yep. Yeah, we've got the petition from the residents, and it is something we are keeping an eye on. So.
Okay, good.
Oh, and the sound barriers on 95, that project has started, so not a lot of construction yet, but they are mobilized, and they will be providing us with a schedule soon.
Good.
That has started.
Speaking of sound barriers, I know it's not our purview, but there was the report that they're going to put dividers up on 95 now
Yeah.
because of the recent accidents.
I saw
Will we
that.
get updates on that, or that'll
No.
just sort of happen? And
Yeah.
okay. Great, thank you, Eric. And then lastly, we have, I guess about 6 months ago, a bunch of parking lot signs popped up for non-city lots that are. It's very difficult to see that they're not city lots when you're driving by, let's say. And we have a currently approved design that they should be using, but are not. And since they're going to have to replace a bunch of signs, we looked at this, I think, as a chance to make the approved sign a little bit better. So on the last page of the packet, you can see what they're supposed to be using, what they're currently using, and what we're going to request that they use in the future. And I'm not really sure how that works. I guess that's a legal matter.
Yeah.
It's our DPW's purview to set the sign design.
And
So we work with, go ahead, Eric.
this new design takes into account recommendations from our parking utilization consultant, Desmond Associates, as to what a sign for these private lots should contain. Up top, we want to emphasize that it's not a city parking lot, because that's where a lot of the confusion comes in from people parking there and seeing higher rates and getting tickets that are not in line with the cities. So we want to make it very clear that it's not a city parking lot, and then who is operating this lot would be the next line of information. And then the hours and rates change. They have dynamic pricing in these lots, depending on time of day, day of year, so it's hard to put the rates out here without having to change the signs on a daily basis. So making it clear that there's a kiosk with variable signage, variable rates within the lot. So that's the intent, is to try to make this as clear as possible that it's not a city lot.
Mary Lou?
Well, it's been going on for at least 8 years, I think. It's a New Hampshire Parking Partners, right? So I remember when they first came in, there was an article actually in 2018 in the Herald regarding this, that people are confused by the signage. So it's time to get this all straightened out.
Dave?
People end up with tickets that they didn't expect.
My only thought is that you've got the not, and then a city lot is kind of small. I almost like the private lot in big letters, and then not a city, or larger letters saying not a city lot. The not, keeping the city lot at the same font as the not, just so it's a little clearer. I mean, that's,
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
certainly do that. That's where I'm looking for some feedback on
Yeah.
design issues like this.
I'll work with you on that.
Yep.
The messaging is correct.
yeah.
Because, Ben has mentioned this several times, people only tend to read the first line on the sign.
Right,
If at all.
right. That's why I was thinking that private lot, and then underneath it, not a city lot.
Yeah.
That's what's in the current one. It hasn't
Yeah,
worked.
currently it said privately owned, it was top line, and people weren't reading it. They weren't taking that into account. So then they changed it to this without our approval.
How many private lots are in Portsmouth?
Many.
A dozen?
12?
Well, at least.
Churches, law offices, et cetera, et cetera.
Erica?
Do they have to use this color and font scheme? Like I noticed or is it they have to have these, do you know what I'm saying? Like, are we saying this is the sign, or you have to have these features on your
No,
sign?
this is the sign.
Yeah. So,
I-
yeah. And I chose these colors based on METCD standards for
Yeah.
signs, green and white being directional for motorists. Blue and white is also motorist services. It could be
Yeah.
an option, but,
I agree that it's a little bit cognitively overwhelming. I kind of feel like that top line, it would be helpful if it was a green bar with white font that said not a city lot. And I think having them all the same, like the not a city lot, all one size, the size of the not part, I think might be helpful. And then it has like a flag right at the top that should just jump out. Right now, I think it's a little bit, my eye kind of goes all over the, I like the changes. I like the content changes. I think we need to tweak I can feel that my brain doesn't process it as well as I think it could.
yeah, I think it's a good point. Thank you.
Mark?
Does the IT department have somebody in doing graphics, layouts?
No.
No?
I think as long as we emphasize that not part and with just one line, that, because we know that the current ones that were in use didn't really seem to work. The ones that are in use now definitely don't work.
What are other
And,
towns?
hopefully this one will work a little better.
I like the content changes a lot.
All over the country.
What are other towns doing?
As a matter of fact, I was in Newburyport a few weeks ago.
There you go.
And I saw one of our signs used by this vendor.
Oh, no kidding.
At their lot. So
Same for- yeah.
they're not using the signs here, but they're using them in other cities. So.
Okay.
Stephanie?
That's what I
I'm just wondering if there was a reason why we took away the word parking. Like, I know there's a P and it says privately operated, but there's no actual word parking.
Yeah. Point.
Is there a purpose for that, or is
He
that?
carries that.
Okay.
I think we want to emphasize that it's not a city lot as
Okay.
much as we possibly can, and everything else is secondary.
I can just picture the private vendors wanting to put that specific word.
Fair.
No matter what they want.
Yeah. Trying to reduce the amount of wording that they have to read. So.
I'd like to just point out too that these private vendors provide a real good service to the city. So yes, it's frustrating for folks sometimes to feel like they're charged more, but it's what the market will bear. And as Ben always, points out, it's like we're providing a bargain. These other folks are charging what other folks are willing to pay.
Discount parking, of course.
And it provides how much, like 600 parking spaces? What's in addition to the inventory? Do you remember?
The numbers online, I'm not sure. It's around that. It does vary.
Yeah, but it's a significant addition to the inventory, so it's helpful.
Necessary.
Yep.
I think Stephanie's point is a good one. I mean, we want them to use it. So if something is a barrier to them using it, I mean, if the P was a little bit smaller to allow the word parking to show up, I feel like that would be fine.
Based on the feedback I get from residents, my concern is more that we make sure people are abundantly clear that it's not a city lot, and
Totally.
they leave them to their own devices to figure out whether or not they can park there.
I mean, there's an METC standard for signs where they put the big P like this and then it's ARKING after it. That could be something.
So,
Parking.
just one question. Do we have to put on there who operates it? Isn't that
They do.
their issue?
See where it says operated
Well,
privately
yeah.
by?
Right,
This
yeah.
is like the template. And,
Right,
Right.
right. So
They
I
would-
think it's most important to put not a city lot. That's the most
Right.
important aspect to me of that sign.
And if that font, I would make that font as big as it can
Yeah.
fit,
And these are signs they go out and purchase their own, right? We don't supply these. We give them the template and then they have to procure them.
Yep.
Some of them have the SKUs. You take a picture of it and it goes to the website.
All right.
What's that called?
QR code.
Well, let's move on to miscellaneous. Is there anything? Mary Lou?
Yes, I'm just going to refer to the speed indicator signs that are not working really all over town. They're sporadic. Sometimes 25 comes on and then it blinks off and then there's nothing on for a couple of days. So it's not just on South Street, which is where I see it most of the time, but I know it's been an issue. I know the batteries are an issue. I don't even know if we have any solar, but I'm just bringing it up as constant.
Yep. I'm glad you raised that because we did make a change to these signs recently. So they had previously been flashing the speed or whatever the traffic was
Right.
going at. But what we've learned is that the signs are more effective when you only target the people who are going significantly over the speed limit. So we've set them to only show speeds now when they're 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. So if it's a 20 zone, you
Yep.
don't see a number until it's 25 or above.
Good. That's similar to what they do in Kittery on Route 1, just up at the hill.
And,
They do
so
that indicator
it gets
too.
the attention of the driver who really needs
Yeah.
the message given to them.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell every driver who's doing the speed limit that, yes, you're doing
Yeah,
the speed limit.
right. If I'm going 21, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So it just comes on as a flash.
Well,
It
it
doesn't-
it will come on at 25, and then if you drop your speed to 24, it'll go off.
Right.
So that's maybe why you're seeing a flash.
Oh, yeah, that's
You're
probably
right on
why.
that limit,
Yeah.
that threshold.
I don't think Mary Lou ever sees that
Again.
side. And I think the other thing that we were learning is this, we've put up a number of these over the last few years, and they are becoming a bit of a maintenance issue. So we might look to have a policy at some point regarding these, sort of like we have talked about with our RFPs and other traffic calming devices,
Nobody wants them discontinued, though. We all think they work.
which is why we probably need a policy. Mark?
I just thought those were designed for temporary, for behavior modification. You put them up for so many months, then you take them down. But once you take it down, then they go back to the old behavior, the speeding.
That's how they're most effective. It becomes, once again, a political discussion. When we take them down, we hear from the residents that they want us to put them back
I think
up.
that's what it boils down to. It's meant for this, but in reality, it's like we're doing this and putting them up permanently to satisfy.
Us, the neighbors.
So we might create a
People
working
who live
group
on the
at some
road.
point to look at these and set some parameters for when we use them and don't use them, so we're a little more consistent with their application.
Yeah, it's causing a maintenance issue because they're temporary devices that are going permanent, and they're not made for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other miscellaneous items? All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.